Guys, now I introduce our mentor. So he's Varad Rajan Krishna, the co-founder and MD, Asia and MENA region of 100 Open Startups. 100 Open Startup is a global community of startups. They do help a lot of startup ecosystem works, especially on open innovation concept. So he also an executive turned entrepreneur with 5 exits, including 2 IPOs. He's also an angel investor with a track record in a career spanning over 25 years. He's currently engaging in building open innovation communities worldwide through Induct. He has also involved in a few global startup programs. Notable among them is the 100 Open Startups. He is involved in various startup initiatives in India, worldwide as a mentor and jury as a way to give back to the global entrepreneurship ecosystem. He has deeply involved with the highest funded IoT startup in the energy sector. Win AMR worked together with its founder chairman built the end-to-end smart grid company from its inception to revenue stage. As one of the board of directors of Win AMR, he drives the overall strategy for the growth of the company. So now the entire session is hand over to you, sir, and you can take it forward. And thanks for the time you given for us.
Most well. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon to all of you. It's a great moment to talk to the ecosystem in Odisha. I'm not a stranger to Odisha. I've been to KIT before many times, and we have a good relationship with the incubator there, and we have also done some events there. So this is, like I said, continuing from what we have done before, but this time it is more towards what needs to be done to the ecosystem in Odisha. And so today I'm going to present two concepts. I'm not sure whether any of you are aware. One concept is called open innovation. That is something which evolved out of UC Berkeley. That was in the year 2003. It was first published. So you're going to see more about that. And the second concept is for startups, which is called effectuation. It's a science of entrepreneurship. So I want you both to, let's say, in terms of how we bring the open innovation concept with effectuation, how we integrated it, is something that I'm going to go through today. So I do not know the mix of the audience, but I would like to again say this is going to be useful for entrepreneurs. It's going to be for entrepreneurship educators out there, any e-cell incubators who are going to be there. For all of them, this is going to be very beneficial. And you can all look at how you can all add value on your, let's say, in your own ways, in your own methods. And at the end of the day, the idea is to bring about collaboration, how we can collaborate and co-create the future. Okay, so that is the idea behind this session. So I've been allocated 40 minutes, so let me try to wrap it up in 40 minutes so that I can take questions. I think we now have, as I see it, it's 3:12 already. So we have another 40 minutes. That means 3:52. Probably we'll extend it by 10 minutes, Vishnu. So that's the plan.
Yeah,
okay, so let me start it. Okay, so let me start. I hope all of you are able to see the screen. Vishnu, are you able to do?
No, I think the presentation is not on. Could you share presentation?
Okay.
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah, it was done already. Okay.
I think.
One minute. I'll again enable it. No problem.
Yeah, please. Could you please?
I hope you can see now.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, great. So, as you heard, you might be also aware that this is someone who's presenting to you is someone who has been through entrepreneurship, and I've been in this for last 17 odd years. So prior to that, I was an executive at large companies, and then I went into entrepreneurship, and I've been through some journeys. So 5 of them are notable. I made 5 exits, so to say. 2 of them were IPOs, one in India, another one at Norway, Oslo. So this company that I exited last is a prime reason behind what you're seeing here about open innovation. This is a company called Induct. So you can all visit that website, inductsoftware.com. So it is headquartered in Oslo. So just to tell you the experience, this was something which started in 2007 in Oslo, and I was running a company here in India, and it was bought out by this company, and we became a co-founder of Induct. And today I'm still involved as not only as a shareholder, but also as someone as a core member on the board running the Asia operations. And I am building a lot of innovation communities, open innovation communities worldwide. And Induct is a world leader in this. And one of the communities that we built is relevant for the ecosystem. So what happened? Why we did this? This is something which I will tell you quickly. So when we were building our own companies, when I say we, the people who are involved in building the 100 Open Startups are all serial tech entrepreneurs like myself. Okay, all of us were executives and then became entrepreneurs, and we exited. And so we had some history. We also knew about the problems, challenges, and the struggles, okay, an entrepreneur goes through. So what we thought, is there a way to make entrepreneurship into a science and can be taught to would-be entrepreneurs of tomorrow? That's one thing. Second, can we make the lives of these entrepreneurs a little bit easier? It's not I'd say it's not for the weak-hearted. It's meant for people who are tough, and entrepreneurship journey is not easy. So that's the first thing I would like to warn you all. So having said that, it's much better than when we started, right? So when we started, there was no grants, there was no startup policy, no startup programs like what you have from the various governments, whether it's the Indian government or the Odisha government. You have so many programs today, right? And also there are so many grants being given, encouraging you to become entrepreneurs. So we didn't have all of that when we started our own journeys. Okay, so that's one big plus already for you guys. The other opportunity is for you today. Everyone is aware of the importance of startups. So when I started out, nobody knew of the word called startups. Many people were not, let's say, it was totally new. It was a buzzword, at the time. So I'm talking about 17 years ago. So now I will walk you through what we did and how it is going to be beneficial for you, how you should all leverage it. I presume in the audience, predominant. So for all of you, this is something which you have to pay attention to. So I'm going to start out first by talking about open innovation. So open innovation is a concept created by Dr. Henry Chesbrough. What's the background to this is, Dr. Henry Chesbrough himself was an executive. He used to work for a company called Quantum Drives. It's a company headquartered in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley. And they make these hard drives. Okay? Like you have a laptop or you have a desktop. If you see, all of them have hard disks. So the Quantum company, this company was one of the world leaders, along with Seagate and Western Digital. Okay, so this was those times. So he used to be in their R&D department, and many times there used to be challenges. So what he used to do was to go outside his company to look for such solutions. So the solutions used to come from researchers at institutes or universities, or it used to come from startups. Okay, so this was his background, and this led him to investigate further. Like when he began to do with 5, 10 jobs like this outside, he realized a pattern that he was able to do things very fast, and he was able to save on costs. Then he thought there must be a method to do this, and he went on to create what's called open innovation. And what you're seeing here is the paradigm called open innovation. So if you see the concept of open innovation, it is like a funnel with a lot of pores, as you see here, right? And there is also another paradigm before that, before Dr. Chesbrough's work, and this is called closed innovation. That is, imagine a funnel without any pores. And what used to happen, ideas used to come from within the company, within the employees. They could develop the product and then take it to market, and then retain the leadership. So as you see, this is the old method of doing, and there are a lot of organizations still continuing to do that. Okay, and so it worked very well in many industries, as you see here in chemical industry, or when Edison spun out GE, a company that is found out of his corporation which he created. Then we had oil companies. There were some scientific achievements during World War II, and then also there were other R&D work that was going on in modern U.S. companies in the 20th century. All of them are examples of closed innovation. So it worked very well. But like I said, there were competition coming up, and there was also new developments coming up, disruptions coming up in the marketplace. And this is where they had to collaborate with others outside. And that is what you see here. So you have to partner with the he began to collaborate with outsiders. It could be universities, researchers, and so on. And this is how he built this concept called open innovation. So the ideas can come from outside, mix with the ideas inside the company, and they go out as new products. And so it can be also, there are IPs inside the organization that can come out, spin out, mingle with what is coming from outside, and then go out as well. And there were also a lot of IPs within the organization which were never utilized, and those could also find new lease of life because they could partner with researchers outside. They could also partner with, let's say, startups and spin them out. Okay, so these are the examples that you're seeing here. Inside, IPs going out, so what you call inside out, and outside in. That means there are IPs lying outside the organization that also comes inside and then goes out into the market. And this organization is able to maintain the leadership in whatever business they are. So if you ask me what has happened, see, the open innovation as a concept has succeeded in a very big way. Every big company is practicing it in some form or the other. And one example, notable example, which became very big and became a case study of many universities and business schools, is the one by GE. So they invested something like $1 billion in the year 2007. And they got a return of $7 billion, okay, within the next few years. So this is a classic example of how big companies benefit from knowledge assets that are lying outside. Okay, so what is the logic of open innovation? So that's what you're seeing here. So knowledge, right? You may be somebody in the room who has got some knowledge on IoT, for example. So as you know, there are a lot of other people also having knowledge on IoT. So what does it mean? It means that it is not proprietary to somebody. It's not a monopoly of somebody, right? You can, if you want to become an IoT expert, you can learn and you can become an IoT expert, right? So this is what we are talking about, that good ideas are actually available all over the world. And if you can collaborate with the people who are owning those ideas and thoughts and people who have this knowledge, the better it is for the ecosystem. Next, when you look at also from a point of view of the people who are managing financial matters within the company, it's also good because you can look at, also, let's say, procuring those IPs or that knowledge in a very efficient way. Okay, so that's what you're noticing here. Then you must also manage the IPs, within the organization. You need to access external IP because you may not have that expertise. There is somebody with the knowledge. You better partner with that gentleman or that company or that organization. Okay. And similarly, you may have IPs within the organization that I already talked about, and you want to unlock that because there's at some point in time it had value, but now it doesn't have a value. But there may be outside, the organization. There may be others who may find value for it. Why not sell it? Why not license it to that organization or that startup? So this is another way of unlocking it. And the last one, which is a very important logic as well, not all the best people in your industry work for you. They are scattered all over the world. So why not collaborate? Right? So that's the logic of open innovation. And more importantly, See, within the big companies, right, there's a lot of egos. That means if you talk to a very big company, they will tell you, yeah, we know everything, right? You talk about any tech, they'll say, oh, we have it, right? So this is what you call the ego. And big companies also think if something is not made within their organization, it is not worth, let's say, collaborating with or even pursuing, as a form of research or, to even partner. So we call this as a NIH syndrome, which means not invented here. That means if it is not invented within XYZ company, whatever that company is, it's not valuable, it's not worthwhile partnering, okay? Whereas the open innovation as a concept, what we did was, he said that NIH syndrome, when you want to partner, you have to shed that ego and then, find out outside, and you can always find it, a lot of great examples of that exist. So one I will tell you became a case study of the Harvard Business School. This is about a company called Procter & Gamble. So you may be all aware of the Sprinkle chips, the potato chips, right? That is coming up in, it's being sold in all over the world. It is a cylindrical container. It comes in cylindrical containers. And they have this round circular potato chips, right? So they had a requirement where they wanted to put some images and they wanted to cut it out in a certain shape and all that. So they invested a lot of money, talking about P&G, okay? They didn't succeed. That's when they heard about Dr. Chesbrough's work and they consulted him. And with that knowledge, what they did was they put out this problem statement out in the public worldwide. So they said anybody who has a solution anywhere in the world can apply. And what happened, there was a small bakery in Italy. They had already developed this technology, cutting it in a certain way, putting images and all that. So they said, yes, we have this technology. And guess what? P&G had already spent some $1.5 million US at the time. They didn't succeed. But then this is ready tech. It has been commercialized. It's been there for a long time within that bakery, and it's being sold. The potato chips were being sold in that same manner which P&G wanted. So these executives from P&G flew in, negotiated, and bought out that IP. They bought out the company. So I'm just telling you, this is how large companies, because they have a lot of money is not a constraint for them, right? And so they want the timing to the market. Before the competitor get in, they want to get in there first. So that's what happened. And so they bought this technology at much cheaper price. They probably had budgeted for $7 million. They got it for maybe less than $3 or $4 million, right? So this is a good example. This is a case study of the Harvard Business School to validate the findings of Dr. Chesbrough. Okay? And as I speak with you today, nobody is even questioning the requirement for open innovation, right? It is now the inside of every organization. There's no company today who doesn't practice open innovation, okay? So just keep this in mind. Why this is important for startups is this is the need that you guys are filling in, okay? Whether you're a researcher, whether you are an incubator or an accelerator, etc., they are addressing the need of the corporate, okay? So you can remember that open innovation is kind of a need fulfiller, okay? That is fulfilling the need of the big company. Now, there's a lot of work for those who are interested in the audience to learn more about open innovation. There are path-breaking work, a lot of books published by Dr. Chesbrough. The one in the middle, I would say my favorite is this one, which is Open Business Model, the one in the red. That is the one I would recommend to you. And this is important from a point of view of how we create business model, various business models, right? So I don't have the time to talk about it, but you can pick it up and read. It is available on Amazon. Now I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship because what happened is when we began our own program, Dr. Chesbrough was our chairman on the advisory board. He's still the chairman of Induct and is a stakeholder in the company. And so he introduced us to entrepreneurship. And he said, look, the work relating to the research on entrepreneurship is something you guys have to incorporate into the program, right? So when we began, it was a purely open innovation program. So 3 years we were only promoting open innovation, and that's the time he said, look, you have to also bring in, the various entrepreneurship research and work that has gone on all over the world, and bring the best into our program. So that's when he connected us to Dr. Saraswati. So there's a lot of work on entrepreneurship, but today I'm going to talk about effectuation. We have brought most of this, but effectuation is so important because that is something you can easily follow. Okay, I can say that it's what you see from here. See, this is Vinod Khosla. So you may be knowing Vinod Khosla, right? He's a very famous investor out of the Silicon Valley, and he is
Varad,
the one,
sorry to interrupt.
who
Hello.
yes,
The slides is not changing. Can you check it from
sorry.
the slide is not moving. Could you check it now? Like,
Any of the entrepreneurs out there, I think there's a great opportunity for you if you have a solution to deal with this bandwidth issues because everybody is on internet these days, and it is affecting the bandwidth. As you can see, we are struggling to present. It is not taking much of a bandwidth, but I think the bandwidth is today eaten up by everybody. Okay, so that's a good problem to solve. Now, Vinod made one statement. Okay, he said, effectuation is the best theory of entrepreneurship you actually follow, whether you heard of it or not. What a statement. He said, everybody's doing effectuation without knowing that it's effectuation. So I must tell you my own case. I did all these entrepreneurship journeys, but I didn't know that I was actually following effectuation. So that means it's a great example of what to do. When you are starting on an entrepreneurship journey, follow this. You need to follow some method, right? So this effectuation method or the effectuation principles is a good method to follow. So I would like everyone to pay attention to what I'm going to go through. So a brief about Dr. Saraswati, because she's the one who created this. Like you heard about Dr. Henry Chesbrough, who came from industry to academia, Saras was an entrepreneur, okay? And she had some journeys. 3 of them were failures, 2 were successful. And she was very bothered by the number of failures. At that time, she mentioned to me around 99.7% failures, globally in the entrepreneurship. If you look at the whole scenario, 99.7%. So she thought, even I have failed sometimes. So is there some way I can teach people about entrepreneurship so that we can reduce those failures? Okay, that's what led to this, what's called effectuation. So before I go there, a little bit of a story about how this came about, right? How she started this research. So she applied to the Darden Business School, Virginia, to do this research, and she was very fortunate to get Dr. Herbert Simon, who's a Nobel laureate in economics, as her guide, and he agreed to do this with her, this research. And what they did was she gave the problem statement, and then they very deeply studied about it, went thoroughly studied about why so many entrepreneurs are failures and only a handful are successful. This I'm talking about 1998, around that time, okay, prior to 2000. So they decided to do research about successful entrepreneurs, okay, and so when they did some research, they found there were some 350,000, that is 3.5 lakh entrepreneurs who were very successful at the time. But that was a huge number to do a research about. So what they did, they made, let's say, they introduced a bar in the sense, they raised the bar by saying, we will only interview expert entrepreneurs. And so they coined this term to differentiate from other entrepreneurs. So who is an expert entrepreneur? Somebody who has been in entrepreneurship 15 plus years. Somebody who's been through multiple ventures, not one, but many, and at least one IPO. So if an entrepreneur ticks marks against all these 3 criteria, he or she would be called an expert entrepreneur. Okay, so what they did, when they did this research, and as I said, they did this filtering from 350,000, it came down to something like 300. Okay, and then with the help of the Nobel laureate, They wrote an introductory email to all of them that included Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle, then Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Atlantic. You all know him very well. So these, like some of the entrepreneurs I'm naming so that you know the quality of the people that they interviewed. And this work, the output of this research is something called effectuation. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to give you quickly. So actually, I would say even this session will take 2 hours just to talk about effectuation. But due to the paucity of time, I'm going to make it very fast. So the first principle is called the bird in the hand. Okay, that is when you have something to start with, right? Whenever you want to start, who I am, what I know, whom I know. Okay, so that's the first principle. Okay, whatever knowledge you have. So let's say you have decided to become an entrepreneur, right? So when you want to become an entrepreneur, you should have something to start. You should have some idea, right? So how does that idea come about? Because you have some knowledge, you have some experience in that area, right? So that's what I said, who I am. Okay, I have some knowledge in electronics, let us say. What I know a bit about electronics. Who I know some professors, I know some company people, I know some people with knowledge on electronics. So this is what, so all that is called the bird in the hand. So the very famous, proverb, it says, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? You know this. So that's what you're saying. That's the first principle. Then, once you have this idea, what you do, like I said, whom I know, you want to validate whether that idea is good. Talk to people who have knowledge. What can I do? So, you're questioning people, you're talking to people, trying to figure out whether that's a good idea, whether it will work, try it, and so on, right? So, all that steps that you're doing is called affordable loss. So it can be also an experiment, right? Some customer says, hey, I'm going to buy your solution. Okay. So that can be if somebody, you're saying, I'm going to make something like this. Will you buy it? Okay. So it doesn't cost you anything, right? You are spending time and you have somebody who's a willing listener. You are kind of test marketing it before you even make the product, right? So this is an affordable loss. You're not going to lose anything. So that's the second principle. Then once you have this, let's say you're meeting with me or meeting with others, your professors, your friends. So they are going to connect you to some others, right? And they're going to say, okay, I know somebody who knows about this. I know a company who's working on this. I know a professor who's working on this, and so on, right? So what you do, you are now getting connected further on by the people that you know, and this is your ecosystem. In other words, you may also find your co-founder. So let us say you're starting something. Very often, investors will not put money into a single man company. It could be, if you say you are a proprietor, nobody will put money. It's too risky for the investors because, God forsaken, some trip you go and you get injured or you get hit by something. That's the end of the story, right? So the investors will never put money into such one-man shows. They will never do it. So this is why you have to select a co-founder. So like I said, you are, as a founder of the company, you are making decisions. You are self-selecting who should be your customer, who should be your partner, who should be, let us say, the person that you're going to work with in office, and so on. So you're selecting a lot of stakeholders. Okay, that's what I said. And that process, we call it as a crazy quilt. So why it's called crazy quilt? It's because an ecosystem is similar to a crazy quilt. And what is a crazy quilt? If you go to a tailor shop, you find a lot of cut pieces lying on the ground. Okay, imagine you pick up all those cut pieces, stitch it together, then you get a nice quilt. But the quilt is crazy because it's of different colors, different patterns, and texture, etc. Right? Everything is different in it, and that is how your ecosystem is. So you can decide from that ecosystem whom you want to invite to be your partner, whom can be your co-founder, who can be your investor, and so on, right? So that is why it's called the crazy quilt. Now, as an entrepreneur, what happens? You have figured out all this, then you realize that there are a lot of challenges, a lot of constraints. So here I want to give you a quick example. Suppose I give you an apple or an orange. What you do, you say, thank you very much, and you take it. Suppose I give you a lemon. Most people in the audience are going to say, what would I do with the lemon? It's sour. You know what an entrepreneur will tell me? Thank you very much. I'll convert that into a lemonade. Okay. So you are given constraints. So remember this, even in your personal lives, anything, the lives, they say, right? Life throws lemons at you. So you have to convert, you should learn how to convert that into lemonade. So if you practice that many times, nothing is difficult in life, right? So that is how an entrepreneur is. I gave you a very rudimentary example, but the actual challenges are much, much bigger. So you kind of perfect yourself over time, practicing it over and over, and you're prepared for any such constraint that comes your way. You know how to tackle it. So this is what's called the lemonade principle. And when you are aware that this is how you have to look at life, you are better prepared, right? So that's what it is. Then once you've had all of this, you know how to overcome the constraints, you know how to overcome the problems. You may have to work without salary for the next 1 year. You cannot go for, say, some uh, excursion trips, or you want to go some movie theaters or have some nice meals at the restaurants. All of that you have to forego. No more luxury trips. So I'm just saying, if you are mentally prepared, then next 1 year you have to cut down all this and focus on making this journey. Then your journey will be much better, your experience will be much better. Okay, so that's the fourth one. Fifth one, do anything that you want to do with a big impact. Don't spend too much time on small things. Take a big thing that will create a huge impact. All of us at the end of the day have 14 let's say productive hours. 10 hours goes into sleeping, eating, and whatnot. Okay, so those 14 hours, use it productively to do something large, and that's called the pilot principle. You also call it pilot in the plane. So imagine a pilot at 36,000 feet level. You're looking at a big landscape, and so that's how you have to look at your entrepreneurial journey. You can do a small entrepreneurial activity. You can also do a big activity. Take the big activity, because that will create more value, more time spent, time spent, let's say, also in terms of more impact for the whole ecosystem, right? So now I'm quickly going back to this, and I walk you through an example, and then with that I will. So you see here this particular screen, whatever I covered, these 5 principles are there: bird in the hand, affordable loss, crazy quilt, lemonade, and pilot in the principle. So this pilot in the plane is the 5th principle. Now, what is effectuation? Work with what's already within your control to co-create the future. Okay, that means you heard about all of this. I gave you the journey of how an entrepreneur moves from an idea stage to make it something big, and how you're going to work with your stakeholders, your ecosystem, so to say, to create something where they are also a partner with you. Okay, now I'm going to give you a real life example of how it happened. So take these 2 guys, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia. So anybody has an idea what these guys did? So you're going to learn soon. So they actually start out, they are living in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley. And this company became very famous, and they continue to be even today very famous. So what they did, they began to, rent their own.
Yeah, so my apologies again. This is somehow some issues with the connectivity today. So Vishnu, I suggested let's go into Q&A, because this most of the important aspects we have covered, and like you suggested, let us do another event, another day, maybe a better day with a better bandwidth.
Sure.
So my suggestion is let's go into Q&A.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So one of you can moderate the questions.
Yeah, Shreya, you go ahead and let's do the Q&A part. So we have a couple of questions also. Right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You can.
Yeah. Once again, I request all the attendees to post your questions in the chat box so that we can take up most of the questions.
So I see.
Yes,
already,
sir. Going to the questions. The first
so
question.
Shreya, one question. Can I take?
Yes, sir.
Shreya, can I take the questions
Yes, sir.
as it
Sure.
is, because there's one Arvind. Yeah, Arbindo Panda said, as an entrepreneur, is it better to be focused on just one startup, or keep exploring next ideas to make it new startups? So Arbindo, it's a good question. See, the answer is very simple. Always work on one idea. Okay, there's no point in trying to do multiple things, because as a startup, you have only so much resource. So you, as an entrepreneur, trying to do many things at the same time will not work out. It's not good for you. And let us say, out of those ideas, you try something like the way I showed you from this 5, let's say, principles of effectuation you follow, and try to eliminate. Okay, that's what you should do, and see whether you can get good traction. If your one startup idea is good, you can, for idea 1, idea 2, like that, you can go through with this effectuation principles and see whether uh, which of these ideas that you have, say 3-4 ideas you may have, among those, which is the best one. Okay, you can eliminate that one by one and work on one which is good. Okay, so the answer is very simple: work on one, not many. Okay, that's my solution for you. The next question I see from Biswajit Satpati: being an entrepreneur, how can we pivot better? So much before pivoting, Biswajit, you need to, like I said, follow that principles. And how to pivot better is, first you have to try. Okay, you have to try a business model. For example, let's say you're making a hardware, and you have to figure out whether you want to sell it outright or you want to rent it, and so on. So this is an example of pivoting, whether to sell it outright, or you want to rent it, or license it, and so on. So this is the way you have to look at it and select the best option that will work for you. And likewise, even the products that you're making, right? Suppose you release with certain features, maybe it will not take off, for example. Then can we make some more additional features? So then what you do, you talk to the potential customers and see whether they're going to buy a product or not. Okay, and if not, what is the best way to get the customer to buy it? So you may have made it in a certain way or certain features. After hearing from the customer, you add more features. Okay? So that's how it is done. So here I will also tell you one example of my own case that you heard about, a company called WinAMR. So that's into smart metering. So when we started out, there was no smart meter. This I'm talking about in 2004. So what we did, we went and met probably some 50 potential customers all over the world, utility companies, all multi-billion-dollar companies. So what we did, we made a prototype, took it there, and met with every metering manager who is going to buy your product, and checked with him whether the features that we have is something that he will buy. Okay. So he said, yes, certain features are great, certain features are not. So likewise, we learned. It's what happens. You start with a certain, what you call the MVP, minimum viable product. You go and pitch, you learn from it, and you add on features and more. And thereby, your product becomes much better than before. So this is an example of how you will pivot. Okay, and then you'll be able to bring out a better product the customer can buy. So that is what I would suggest, that you should keep meeting the customer, maybe with certain features, and then he or she is going to tell you, the customer is going to tell you that he's fine, this is fine, or this is not. Then you pivot accordingly. Okay, so that's how it works. So next question, how to fundraise? This is a question coming from Miglal, right? So how to fundraise for our startup to reactive on COVID-19. So this question, Vishnu, is I think this has to be framed properly. I do not know what the question is. Okay, maybe you can ask Meglal to be more precise. Next question, shining sapiens. What is the best way for university students to work together to co-create knowledge? Yeah. So, so what I suggest is that you can start, let's say, in your own group, friends group. You may have one person who's very good at coding, another person very good at marketing, another person who is very good at creative work. So what you do, you all come together and create something. Okay, that's a great example of how you can start, right? Then you're going to understand the constraints, the challenges that you have. So let us say the creative person has so much knowledge, but he's stuck. So then you can figure out another creative person in your own university or school, and then begin to collaborate with those that have better knowledge, and then you can create something together. So this is how it works. There are everybody in the ecosystem. So I would call it broadly as ecosystem, right? It could be anybody who has the knowledge, and with that person you begin to collaborate, and then you create something. So that's called co-creation. Please take up my question as well, which is a bit about Jita Baharaj. So which is that question? So I hope I've answered it, Jita. You said my question, which is a bit above. Okay. Bit above. So maybe Vishnu or someone can coordinate this. Okay, it's below actually, Jita.
Yeah.
Hello, so hope you are doing good. Yes, it's not. Yeah, it's not above but below. Hope you're doing good. So my question is based on ESOPs. How effective do you think are ESOPs for a startup, and how we can effectively implement it based on our company's needs? Yes, ESOP is a very good solution to retain employees. Okay, so you heard a bit about open innovation, you heard about effectuation today. You must have also learned something, which is the best knowledge is not with you or within your company, it is lying elsewhere. And how are you going to attract and retain good talent? It is by making him or her as a co-owner in your company, by giving him the piece of your company, right? And that's the only way you're going to retain what we call key people that are required for your company. Okay, that is what my suggestion is. That is why worldwide every company follows the ESOP, and I would say that you should, if you have not done it yet, you should start working towards it now, learn from it, and adopt the best practices, and make it a win-win for everybody. Win-win for the company that is run by you, founded by you, and also for the employees that are joining you, because they are trusting you and joining and bringing their whole life's work to put it with you, and they're going to grow with you. So make him or her as a co-owner, and so you must be open about it. Okay. Then second question, Jita. My second question is based on organization design. Suppose a company has to do some headcount reduction because of the COVID crisis. How do you go about new organizational design? Okay, so this is a very tough question, Jita, because in the present circumstances, you have to see where you are in your journey. So you have to see again, evaluate who are required for your company and who are not. So there are companies today who, like startups, let's say little matured startups, they're taking very drastic decisions. They are even doing away with the head of R&D. You know why? Because the head of R&D is a big, say, sap on the company. He or she is taking away a large salary. So the companies that are not able to afford want to say, sorry, we will hire you back later, but we cannot pay you now because there are no sales happening. And the R&D person has completed his job because you're already selling in the market, but you have to retain him or her only because he or she has the knowledge. So something were to go wrong, you have to go back to him or her who has this knowledge, right? So companies that have documented, that's why companies document. Maybe there's another day, another session for this. companies begin to document everything from these people who have the knowledge, so that anybody comes in the future can pick it up and run with it. So I would also tell you that you have to sit down and see who are all the key people that are required in your organization, and whom you can do without. And so based on that, you have to take a decision. Is there any more questions, Vishnu? I think I've addressed.
Yeah, you covered everything. I think it's fine. We can close. If they have any more questions, you guys can mail to us. We will forward to the mentor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. I first and most express gratitude to our speaker for today's session, Varad Rajan Krishna, sir, for handling this session and making it a wonderful and an informative session. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time. We look forward to work with you in future. And I would like to extend my gratitude and my gratefulness to the Startup Odisha, Government of Odisha, Prashant sir, Rajan sir, Saurabh sir, Madan sir, and the entire team of Startup Odisha. And I would like to thank Vishnu Nagaraj sir, the founder of Carve Startup Labs, and the entire team of CSL. I extend my gratitude on behalf of Startup Odisha, Government of Odisha, and CSL to you, sir. And last but not the least, I thank all the attendees for your cooperation in making this event a resounding success. And I request all the attendees to fill the feedback form, which has been, the link has been sent in the chat section. It would be great if to hear from you. And thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, most welcome. So I would like to, give you some closing remarks. First, I would like to say that it was a great opportunity for people to learn about, what is open innovation, effectuation, etc. There were some interruptions, technical, issues we had, but despite that, we were able to complete, though not in, let's say, the way I would have liked it. So here is my suggestion to you, Vishnu, is that maybe you can share some of the videos that are out in the, let's say, I can send you some of the links where we have done events in the past, and where we've done the complete 1 hour sessions, so they can actually view those and benefit from it. Because, unfortunately, I could not cover everything today because of these issues that we faced. But once again, thank you very much for making it a great, lively session. And we could do much better. And let's do it once again another day with more, let's say, better bandwidth and, handling these technical glitches. So this is something, Vishnu, I leave it to you. And you can come back to me with a later date where it will work for all of us. Thank you so much.
Sure. One thing, as you suggested, I will share the entire videos, and as well as we can again host one more webinar with you. And as we know that we're going to work together for long-term collaboration, we are planning, right? So we need more webinars. We can also plan more such programs with you. It will help lots of startups all over the world.